All right. Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us on tonight's team call. We have Carol that's going to lead the call for us, but I just wanted to do some announcements because there's a lot obviously coming out of leadership. And I know I did the video with me coughing, which was so great. And I think I put a post up of like all the different stuff, but I'll kind of just repeat a little bit of just like November and December, what's going on, so you guys can plan for how you're going to be inviting people and sharing on your stories with what's new coming up. So first thing we have super soon is Super Weekend, November 1st to the 3rd. I know Philly is all sold out, but always check the Philly Fusion page. And people are always like selling their tickets. So if you want to be at that with Autumn, come join us. November 1st, we also have the Peppermint Mocha Shakeology. And a lot of you guys asked me for my story since I was able to taste test it on, I think I tried it on Friday. And I like hate peppermint so much that like I hate even in my toothpaste. So like I don't have peppermint toothpaste, but I tried it and it's really, really good. I think everyone is going to be pleasantly surprised. So make sure like you kind of like hype it up before November 1st. I'm sure like if you go to the Shakeology page on Facebook, they have, and in the back office, there's a bunch of promo stuff that you can kind of just share in your stories since we can't really like show it since we don't have it yet. Bar Blend, we also tried that. If you saw me and Dave do that workout, I told him, oh, it's going to be a stretching one because he was really sore from doing the 6 weeks of work. I'm like, it's just going to be some stretching. Like, you'll be fine. She kicked our butt. Like, that was a tough workout. So I know like down by me, we don't have any like bar classes. So I really didn't know what to expect. But I think everyone's going to be like super surprised. So if you think that it's going to be too easy for you, I'm going to say it's not. She really, what's her name? I'm going to try and get her on a team call. She gave me her email. So I'll try and do that maybe tonight if I don't forget. But what was I going to say about her? It's all like very low impact, high intense cardio. Like that's what she really focused on, like kind of telling us like how to share it with people. It's like very high intense cardio, but low impact. And she does like these like cardio burns. I don't know. But yeah, it's a really awesome program. Anyways, that is going to be on sale for coaches December 3rd. And then customers can order that December 16th. And then on January 13th is when like it will be released. So it's kind of just like every other release that's kind of been happening. We'll be able to purchase it sooner. And I'm sure they'll throw out some like free workout or whatever for us to try that ahead of time. And then last announcement, December 3rd, the vegan beach bar is going down. And I missed that one. I didn't get to try it, but I'll definitely be purchasing it on December 3rd. I have this, I'm looking down. I have this calendar that they gave us to at Leadership with everything pretty much like mapped out till next December of 2020. That makes sense? Yeah, that's crazy. I will put this in the team page so you guys can see what's launching and all that fun stuff so you can plan. I didn't want to throw out too much on the team page because there's like, like I got so much stuff from leadership. So every day I'll like try and put in something else for you guys to look at. That's it for me. I'm going to turn my video off because I need to pump, but I will be listening and Carol's going to take it away. So thank you, Carol.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. And can you see my slides okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm so excited to talk today about habits. And, we all have goals that we're working on. We all have our personal goals and we all have business goals. And what I'm finding from my own experience, but also from all of the personal development reading that I've been doing, is that it's a lot easier to make things happen when they're a habit rather than when they are an item to do on your to-do list. And so the more you can automate all of these different daily actions that we want to take, then the more likely they are to get done. And of course, we all know that the more action you take, the closer you get to your goal. So today I wanted to highlight some of what I've learned. My two favorite books on this topic are The Miracle Morning, which I've been following for many years now, and then Atomic Habits is a newer one that I just finished, and there's so many golden nuggets from it that I wanted to share. So I'm going to give you all the best ones today. I would still recommend reading the book because, of course, it always sticks a little bit more when you hear more of the stories and some of the background of it. But I'm going to give you the nuggets that I love the most from these. Okay, let me just move my slides forward. Hold on one second. Right thing moving. Okay, here we go. So set your goals. We've all studied a lot about goal setting, and we know it's really important to be very clear about what your goal is, and then to work your way backwards and figure out, what's that word? Whatever.
Reverse engineer.
Thank you. Reverse engineer. Reverse engineer and figure out what are the daily steps that you have to take to get there. So it's really important to set your goals, figure out what you have to do, but then forget about the big goals and the big picture and focus instead on the daily habits that are going to get you where you want to be. Why am I having a hard time moving my slides? Oh, okay. Okay. Wait a minute. Okay, so I wanted to start with a little story. I know a lot of people have been reading that book on storytelling, and Rose, I saw your awesome post really quickly about storytelling, and I was just thinking that's so fitting because I wanted to start today with a story that will give you some context about why it is that I'm talking about Miracle Morning and habits today. So I live in Massachusetts. I live in the suburbs of Boston, and Lisa Hanson is my amazing upline. And I was so fortunate to join Team Arise. Well, I've been a coach for 5 years, and so somewhere along the line, I joined Team Arise from Lisa's team, which is so amazing. But the problem is that I'm here in Massachusetts, and not a lot of people from the team are here. So when I went to my first, what was then called Super Saturday, I had to show up by myself. Lisa lives a couple hours away from me, and no one else that I knew in the area was going, but everybody said how important it was get to a live event. And so I figured, okay, I got to get to a live event. So there's a big group in my area there's one group that runs a huge Super Saturday event in one town. And I had gone to a couple of those, and they're amazing. And then one quarter, for whatever reason, either I couldn't make it or they weren't happy, it wasn't happening there, or something happened with that one. And so I was looking to see what else I could go to, and I found this other little event in Rhode Island. And I didn't know anyone who was running it. I didn't know anyone who was planning on going. And I just said, what the heck? I'm going to just get myself to this Super Saturday. And so I drove to this random little venue in some random part of Rhode Island, and showed up. And it was so funny because it was such a contrast from this big Super Saturday that I had been attending. And this is this tiny little intimate situation with maybe, I don't know, maybe there were 30 people there, and it was run by this group of guys. And we don't see a lot of guys, there are now some on our team, but in general, we don't see a lot here on our team. So it was such a cool experience to get the male perspective at this event. And they were so amazing, the nicest guys ever. And they did kind of the typical event. And at one point we were on a break and I was sitting there, sorry. So we go on a break, and I was sitting there, and I kind of had this moment, and I said, okay, I'm feeling kind of stupid, to be honest. I don't know anyone here, and this is a little bit awkward, and I could sit here and play on my phone and just pass the time during this break, or I could make something happen. I could make better use of my time since I got myself here and I want to take advantage of it. So I decided to do that, and I walked up to this guy and introduced myself to him and just started talking to him. His name was Mike Richards, and it turns out these guys are all kind of related to our team. They're all part of Lisa's bigger team. So they're somehow related. They're like great grandparents or something like that. So I was talking to Mike and talking about his business and talking about how my business was going. And one of the things I said to him that I was struggling with at the time was staying organized and staying focused and just getting stuff done to move my business forward. And so he said to me, have you ever heard of The Miracle Morning? I said, no, never heard of it in my life. He said, it's a book. You have to get it. It's going to change your life. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go get this book. So I probably ordered it while I was sitting there at the Super Saturday and read this book, and I was blown away. I have never done anything like this in my life. I was never a morning person. I was the wake up at the last possible minute, get as much sleep as you can, and then run around like a crazy person and get ready for the day. And I was always getting frustrated with my kids, and they would get in my way when I'm trying to make my shake and get everything ready. The mornings or days were not starting out peaceful and positive in any way. But I read this book, and it really got me thinking, and it really made me see that I need to change some things. And so I followed everything that's laid out in the book, which I'm going to share with you. And it literally changed my life. And it got me little by little. I started to wake up earlier, to the point I was waking up at 4:45 in the morning, jumping out of bed, ready to go. And there's a line in the book that says you're going to feel like it's Christmas morning. You're going to be so excited to wake up and get going. And I was like, I don't know what that feels like. I'm Jewish. I've never celebrated Christmas, but I got to the point where I understood what he was talking about. I was waking up and I was full of energy and legit excited to see what I could tackle for the day. And so I continued to follow these miracle morning practices for many, many months. And it's really what kind of got me going with some traction in my business and just, improving my mood and feeling really, really great about things. And it was probably, I don't know, it was several months after that when I'm not going to talk a whole lot about this, but it's just sort of part of the story. But that summer, which is now 2 years, a little over 2 years ago, I got really sick with Lyme disease, like really, really sick. And it's not something I talk a lot about because I don't want to give it a lot of energy, and I'm trying to forget that the whole thing ever happened. But for our purpose of the story here, I'll just say that my nervous system was shot and I had a lot of physical symptoms, but one of the most debilitating things was this crippling anxiety. And I was afraid. I had to sleep with the light on. I was afraid of everything. And one of the things that I lost was my ability to wake up and come downstairs. I was literally afraid to come downstairs and be in my house awake when no one else was around. And it was the miracle morning habits and the structure of that brought me back to life. And little by little, I went back to what I had been doing and what I had really solidified. And I said, just come downstairs, and what you're going to do is you're going to work on your gratitude list. And there was something that was really grounding about having a very specific task that I knew I had to do, and then I could kind of block out my time and say, first you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this. And I would just have to talk myself through it and go through the motions of it. And then little by little, it got easier and easier. And getting up and being downstairs alone in my house got easier and easier. And I got back to the point where I didn't even think anything of it. And I got, in addition to doing a whole lot of other things, but I totally recovered from that and got back to my baseline of being a miracle morning person. And I honestly have to say, I think back to this, and I think back to this guy, Mike, that I met, and this conversation that we happened to have, and how he happened to recommend this book. And it just played such a huge role in my recovery that it sticks in my mind as one of those things, like, great things always happen when you face your fears and when you do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. And this is the thing that I come back to, that something really, really amazing came out of stepping out of my comfort zone and meeting someone that I never would have met. And he really changed my life. And he knows this, and I told him this story, and it's this incredible connection that we have. And so I wanted to share it with you because that's the power of daily habits. Yes, I want to share it for the business purpose. And so it helps you do the things that you need to do. But even in your personal life, you never know just how significant it can be to have this foundation for your day that sets your mind straight, sets your body where you need to be so that you can go live your best life. So that's why I'm such a convert, and why I talk about the miracle morning a lot. I'm a psychologist, by the way. I tell all my patients about this. I get them going on a miracle morning routine, and I want to sing it from the rooftops because of what it's done for me. So I hope, probably a lot of you have read the book and are probably doing some of this, but I hope you, if you haven't read it, I hope you'll get the book and really take it for everything that it's worth and adopt as much of it as you can, because it can be just so incredible. So that's my story, and let's get into the nuggets. Okay. So the whole premise of the miracle morning is to undo that scenario that I was explaining in my story. So to get out of that place where you're scrambling around, you're starting your day already feeling crabby and behind the 8 ball, and start it with intention, coming from a place of peace and clarity, and just feeling really awesome. So obviously, in order to get up earlier in the morning, you're going to have to go to bed a little bit earlier. And the success of this morning all comes back to what happens the night before. So I suggest working your way back in 15-minute increments. So if you're used to going to bed at midnight, then maybe you set your target for 11:45. Hang out there for a couple days, or maybe even a week. Let your body get used to that, and then bump yourself back another 15 minutes, and slowly work your way back so that you can get to bed earlier, and then do the same thing in the morning. Set your target time to wake up 15 minutes earlier, and you'll decide how early you need to get. I noticed this really weird thing that 4:45 was a magical time for me, and I just felt better waking up at that time than if I wake up at 6 or if I wake up at 5:30. I don't know if it has to do with where you are in the sleep cycle or something like that, but for me, that ended up being the magical time. There's an app called the Sleep Cycle app. I don't know if anyone has heard of it, but it's really amazing. And what it does is you can put in a time that you want to wake up. So let's say you want to wake up at 4:45. You program it to say between 4:30 and 5, and you put your phone next to your bed, and it measures your sleep waves and your breathing. Actually, I think it is. Measures your breathing to track your sleep waves, and then it knows to wake you up at the ideal place in your sleep rhythm, so that it's going to be easier to wake up and you're kind of in a light sleep and ready to get up. So it's a really, really cool app. Totally works. And I find that when it goes off, I just kind of wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm just ready to get up now. And it totally works. The other thing that the book talks about is sleep affirmations. And there are a lot of things we all probably know by now that the thoughts that you have in your head have a huge impact on how you feel and the kind of actions that you take. And we all, believe it or not, have thoughts about sleep. So if you're saying to yourself, oh, I'm someone who needs 10 hours of sleep, or I'll never be able to function if I wake up any earlier, it's going to be a premonition for how you feel and how you think the next day. So you can set the thought that you want to have when you wake up by stating it, writing it out the night before, and rehearsing it over and over as you fall asleep, so that when you wake up, that's what you're thinking and that's what you're feeling. Oh, 6.5 hours was the perfect amount of sleep for me, and I benefit from having all this extra time in the morning. I'm excited to get up. It might sound kind of goofy, but it really, really works. By the way, feel free to stop me at any point if you have any questions or want me to elaborate on anything. I'm happy to be interrupted and clarify. Okay, so what you see here is the acronym SAVERS, and this is really the hallmark of the Miracle Morning. So we have silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. And Hal Elrod, the guy who wrote the book, the way he came up with these is he interviewed tons of successful and highly productive people on their morning habits. And he asked them all sorts of questions, and then he pulled together the commonalities. And these were the things that all the successful people had in common that they do every morning to set themselves up for success. And so this is how he created the Miracle Morning routine. I should say that this can look a little different, and we all might have our own interpretation of it, and how I do it might be a little bit different from how someone else does it, and that's okay. If you hit these main components and do it in a way that works for you, then that's fantastic. So silence is having a few moments. Oh, and the other thing he says, in an ideal world, you would spend 60 minutes doing this miracle morning. So you would spend 10 minutes on each of these components. But not all of us have 60 minutes that we can devote to this. So you can even do it in 6 minutes, and you can do each of these things for 1 minute. And that's great too. And that's going to make a difference. And so you might find that you spend a little less time on one and then more time on another, depending on where you land with that. So silence is a few minutes. It could be meditation, silent meditation. It could be using one of those meditation apps. It could be prayer. It could be just breathing, whatever works for you to quiet the mind and start your day from a more peaceful place. The next one, and that's one I have to admit, I'm not the best on that one, and I'm working on that, but that's the one that I do in bed before I even get up. The next is affirmations. These are encouraging words that you tell yourself to achieve your goals and overcome your fear. So it's basically deciding what thoughts do you want to have that go through your mind, rather than just responding to the ones that happen to pop up, because those are the ones that tend to be negative and unhelpful, and they sabotage us. So instead, you can write out what are the thoughts that you want to have as they pertain to lots of things. It could pertain to your business. It could pertain to your relationships, your own fitness goals, your own health goals, whatever it is that you're working on. So some of the things, just to give you an example, and also you start really small. So if you've never done this before, you might start off and say, okay, I'm just going to list 3 things under my affirmations. And then you'll find that it gets easier and easier. So I now write out a whole page, but you don't have to. That kind of takes a while. But I kind of like to just go through and touch base with all the different thoughts that I'm working on. But you can also do it more quickly. So things like, I'm a leader, I add value to others, other people are excited to see what I have to post every day, I treat my body well, I fuel my body with nutrition, and I move because I can, and it makes me feel great. Another one that I'm using right now, and they change. I kind of use a cluster of them for a couple of months, and then I move on. Maybe some of the thoughts become automatic, and then I move on to some new ones. But I'm working a lot on habits and time management. So another one that I use right now is I use my time well. I have all the time that I need to reach all the goals that I'm working on. So that's affirmations. Visualization is pausing and imagining yourself doing all these things step by step. So here's an interesting thing about visualization is that a lot of people picture the outcome like, oh, when I hit 1 star, I'm going to walk the stage, or when I make a certain income, I'm going to buy a new car, we're going to take a trip. And it's great to visualize the outcome, but what you also want to do is visualize the actual steps. So visualize sitting down and sitting at your computer and doing a power hour and inviting however many people you're inviting for the day. Or visualize taking out your planner and making your social media calendar for the month and doing that successfully. And then every morning checking in with that and following through with what you've mapped out. So it's visualizing the daily steps that you need to take, as well as the outcome that you're working towards. Exercise, obvious. We all have a pretty good plan for that probably, but there might be some day, we all have things that disrupt our sleep, whether it's kids or our own insomnia or the weather or whatever it is. Inevitably, there are days where we don't sleep well. We might blow that window that we have in the morning to work out. Even if you do 1 minute or 2 minutes, do some stretching, do some jumping jacks, do something just to get the blood moving, and that counts as your exercise for the miracle morning. Reading, put your PD right here. And I think I don't have to say a whole lot more about that. We all know about the value of PD. So I know a lot of people that I follow on social media talk about doing their reading in the morning as part of their miracle morning. I personally do it a little differently, and I do it in my car on my way to work, because I don't know, that's just what I've done, and that's how I get through all of my PD. And then scribing is writing or journaling to process your thoughts and reflect on your life. So this could be a lot of different things. Some people are more comfortable than others in open journaling. So there are a lot of awesome journals out there that have prompts that you can fill in. I personally kind of think that my Facebook posts are like a blog, and they're kind of documenting my life. So I kind of call that part of my scribing. And I find that to be therapeutic as well. So here you have it, the Miracle Morning Savers, the 6 steps and the 6 actions that you take each morning to set your mind how you want it to be, set your body, and they will make a gigantic difference in how you feel every day. I can pause here. Any questions or any thoughts? I can't see everyone, but I imagine that you'll pop up if you start talking. But any thoughts or questions on any of this?
Leia did have a question about if you recommend reading or listening to them.
To PD?
I guess to either Miracle Morning or.
So both, actually. I love audio, especially if it's read by the author, because I think you just feel the emotion of the story. And his whole, like the prologue, like the way he got into the Miracle Morning is pretty powerful. He was in this big car accident and basically died and was brought back to life. So it's really pretty powerful to hear him tell the story of that, and then to go through all the savers. And he has incredible passion for this whole miracle morning movement. So I think the audio is really powerful, but there are so many awesome nuggets and little catchphrases that I ended up also getting the book, so that I think I had the book first, but I end up doing this with a lot of the PD, that I get the book because I want to highlight it and I want to look at the text. So I would recommend both, but maybe start with the audio. Probably what I would say. Are there other questions? Let me see. I hid my chat, but let me take a peek. Okay. All right, so I will move on. Let me just get this out of the way again. Okay, so habits help us reach our goals, and this can pertain to anything. Like I said before, it can be our health goals, our business goals, personal relationship goals. They are all going to be easier to reach if the individual steps are part of a daily habit. Sorry, let me just read this question in the chat. Do you do the steps in order as they are written, or any order that works for you? Doesn't matter. Yeah, I think any order that works for you. Even if you have to break it up. So sometimes I don't get through everything in the morning, and I bring my notebooks with me to work, and I do some of my journaling when I get to work. So I think that's fine. Anyway, could be okay. Okay, so moving right along. So I wanted to pause here and see if we could do some writing. This is such an interesting exercise. I was doing it a little bit by myself as a practice. So I want you to think about a typical day and think about what are some of the things that you already do, that you don't even have to think that much about it, but you just know that they're going to get done each day. And can you write some notes in the chat box for me? So Rose says working out. Yes. Brush your teeth. Hopefully brush your teeth and shower, work out, check my phone and email. Get up early to exercise. That's so funny. If we were to ask someone in another group, of course, that the answers would be totally different. Exercise, make my lunch, brush my teeth, drive to work, prep lunches, knit. Ooh, Bev, we have to talk about that. Feed and walk the dog. So here is a question. Why do you think it is that these are the things that get done every day? It's like, I really don't like the term non-negotiable. So let's just say they're automatic. Why do you think it is that some of these things are automatic? So Adriana says, because they're the most important to us. So if something is super important, then we're going to make sure it gets done every day. The chat box is moving so fast. Because it makes my day start better. They've become habits. So because we do it so much, then they just become habits. Makes life easier, and they make us feel good. So if so there are a lot of reasons why a certain behavior or action can be taken. So maybe it's because it gets you to feel something positive, or it helps you to avoid feeling something negative, or it helps create a certain flow for the day, or like it helps you create a peaceful flow for the day, or it helps you avoid the chaos and the irritability of snapping at everyone around you. So it can be helping you work towards something, or it can be helping you avoid a certain feeling or certain scenario, or it's because, I think someone said, because I value it. Maybe it was because it's important to me. So if you value something, if you're really, really clear about why it's so important, like religious people would probably say, I pray every morning because it's just something that's a huge part of who I am, and I value it so much. Some other examples that I was thinking about when I was writing this was do the dishes. So every afternoon I do the dishes, and I clean up the whole kitchen from whatever was left over from the night before, or maybe breakfast. And the reason why I do that is because when I go to make dinner, I don't want there to be stuff all over the place, because then that's just going to make the whole process of making dinner harder. So it's a habit that I do because I'm thinking a step ahead, and I know that what I have to do next is going to be a pain in the ass if I don't do this. So I've learned to just do that other step. So it would be interesting to elaborate on this exercise a little bit more on your own, and write out some of the other things that you do throughout the day. You know, it could be like listen to music in the car, or call someone, you know, some people call a parent on the way to work, or just what are some of the things that you do and why, and think about what it is that motivates you. Is it because you want to feel a certain way? You want to avoid feeling a certain way? You want to make your life easier? And if you can tap into what has motivated you to do some of these things already, then you might be able to use that same line of reasoning to adopt some of the other things. So that leads me to my next question. Bear with me one second. Is what are some of the daily actions that you'd like to do more consistently, but you're not right now? So you wish they were more of a habit, but they're not right now. And can you type some of that in the chat box? So we have PD, work my business. I wrote inviting from someone else, invites, follow-ups, power hour, invite to the coach opportunity, invites. I think we're all on the same page. They're so damn hard sometimes. Rose wants you want your old life back. Some aspects of it. More time with God in the morning. Summer was easier. Yeah. So it looks like a lot of us would agree that it would be great if a power hour was more of a habit, if inviting and following up was more of a habit. And then you might have some other personal ones, praying, waking up earlier, and meditating, PD. So it would be so awesome if one of the outcomes of this call is that we can all put some of these practices in place and check back, you know, maybe in another 3 months, and do a little inventory and see what has become more of a habit based on some of the tools that you're learning here today. And we know the implication of that is going to be that the more habitual our power hour is, the more habitual our inviting is, then the more it's going to get done, and the more we're going to move our business forward. And that's a win-win. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about how we can do that. Okay, so there we go. Okay. A lot of you probably read The Compound Effect, Darren Hardy, right? That was, I think, my very first PD book that I read when I first started coaching. So, Atomic Habits is sort of a similar concept to that, and the idea is that a very small change, a 1% improvement, can have a huge impact on your results over time. So, a habit that we're working towards, a behavior routine that unfolds consistently and at times automatically helps us reach outcomes that once seemed impossible. So you might say to yourself that something's impossible, like I'll never be a morning person, or I'll never give up drinking coffee. And when you think about these big goals that you're trying to reach, it can feel so daunting. But if you work on the small habits, like the small moments where you're making the choice to have the cup of coffee or not, or to hit the snooze button or not, when you focus on those small moments and those small habits, over time, they compound and they lead to the really big change. So this is one of my favorite diagrams from the compound effect. Hopefully it looks familiar to some of you. But the idea is that as we move across the graph, that's moving across time, and we're looking at three different people. So if you look at the person in the middle, this person over the course of 27 months isn't doing anything different to change. I think it's a hint, to change his life. So he's staying exactly the same, and life stays exactly the same for him. The person on the top is making one small positive improvement to change 1% of his choices. And they seem so insignificant and so small, but over time, and for a long time, actually, it looks like they're not making any difference at all. So month 10, month 20, it really looks like it's not making any difference. Then all of a sudden, the effect accumulates and his progress shoots up. And all of a sudden now there's a big difference between where he was in the beginning and now where he is. And there's a difference between him and the guy who didn't change his behavior at all. And then if you look at the guy in the bottom, he made a 1% change in a negative direction. And for a while, he didn't notice that. And life went along looking about the same. But then all of a sudden, those negative choices really started to accumulate and lead to a negative outcome. So now if you look, there's a difference between that guy in the bottom and the guy in the middle who didn't do anything. But look at the difference between the guy on the top and the guy on the bottom, and there's a huge difference in where their lives are at. All because one made a 1% change in a positive direction, and the other one made a 1% change in the negative direction. And that compounded over time to end up with them being in two very different places. Does that make sense? Um, one of the examples, the compound effect gives so many different examples of how this plays out to be true. But one of the things he talks about is after dinner. And so take these three people, let's say they all have dinner, and the middle person does whatever it is that he used to do. And the person on the top decides to go walking after dinner. He says he and his wife decide to go for a walk after dinner. And maybe over time that walk gets longer and longer, but also because he's walking, he's not eating crap after dinner. And so now his health is really moving upward. And the guy in the bottom after dinner makes the one choice to start watching Netflix after dinner. And so now he sits down, he's not getting his exercise, he's watching TV, and then he decides to get some snacks while he's watching TV. And so now he's got the effect of the snacking and the watching TV and not walking. And all of that accumulates and leads him to be in a much worse off place than the guy at the top. So I think it's so helpful when you look at this, because a lot of times we can be deterred by the fact, if you look at months 1 through 20 and we feel like nothing's happening, I'm doing all these things and these daily habits and nothing's happening. And it's because we haven't been doing them long enough. But if you hang in there and you keep going, then you're going to see the effects of that accumulate, and you're going to see it start to pay off. But what if you were to give up? What if at month 20 you give up and you said, forget it, this isn't working, screw it, it's not for me, and you walked away, but you didn't know that success was right around the corner, and success was just a few months down the road, and all of a sudden you were going to be the one to shoot up in a really positive direction. So I find this visual very helpful to keep in mind, to remember that these small habits do make a big difference, and that just because you can't see it in the moment doesn't mean that it's not having an impact. It just might take more time than you realized. So this was a really cool concept from the Atomic Habits. I've never thought about this, never heard about this, but he talks about the idea that identity habits are more long lasting than outcome habits. So if you take the goal of reading a book, or let's say, I know I've heard of some people say, oh, I want to read 12 books in 1 year, one book a month. So you have the goal of an outcome versus I'd like to become a reader. I'd like to become someone who reads every day. Or a smoker who says, I'd like to not take people up on their offer when they offer me a cigarette. I'd like to start saying no versus I'd like to become a non-smoker. I'm an early riser versus I'm trying to give myself more time in the morning, and I'm trying each day to get up a little bit earlier versus I am the kind of person who gets up earlier. So it feels, or it might sound like it's a small little distinction, but we'll talk a little bit more about it and how powerful it is to think about who the kind of person that you want to become. Who is that person that lives their life a certain way versus just reaching a certain outcome? I think, Rose, you might have posted something about this today about don't just reach for the goal. Yeah, you did. You're like, don't just reach for the goal of a certain rank or a Success Club 10 or 50 or whatever it is, but think about where you're going and what this is really going to do for your life. It's kind of along that same idea. So when we take pride in a component of our identity, the kind of person that we want to be, we're going to be more motivated to sustain that habit. So think about for a moment, who do you want to become? What kind of person do you want to be? And what kinds of things does that person do day in and day out? And then go prove it to yourself with small wins. So this one quote is my favorite quote from the entire book. It really stopped me in my tracks and got me thinking. Every choice you make throughout the day is a vote either for or against the kind of person you wish to be. So every time you go to snack in between meals, every time you make the decision to fight around on Facebook instead of follow up with 5 people, ask yourself, who do I want to be? Do I want to be the person who stays on task and gets the work done? Or do I want to be the person who just kind of is led by what I feel like doing and I let that take me where it takes me? Something about this, I don't know, it just made a lot of sense to me that we're making so many choices throughout the day, again, whether it's for our business or whether it's our own personal goals or our relationship goals. And it helps to kind of slow down in that moment and think, okay, right now I'm about to make a decision, I'm about to make a choice. And is that helping me be this person or is it helping me be that other person? And who do I want to be and what kind of choice would that person make? I found that to be really compelling. Okay, so we all know from what we learn for the business that what you track, you end up doing better with. So we have our business tracker, and we know that when we're tracking how many people we invite per day, then we're more likely to reach the goals that we're working for. So it's the same thing with these daily habits. If you track your daily habits, you're more likely to stay on top of them and stay consistent with them. So this is a habit tracker that I have from the website Erin Condren. I love her stuff. It's all pretty and really colorful and cheerful. And I find that what the visual aspect of that is very motivating to me, but you can use whatever you want. You could use a piece of paper. You could use an Excel spreadsheet. You could use, there are a whole bunch of apps that you could get on your phone. I happen to find this one and I really like this one and I keep it by my bed. And so, I had one written out with my own personal habits I was going to share, but I didn't upload it in time. But I can find a way to share that if you want. But you can write out from the start of the day throughout the day. So I start out by saying I want to be downstairs by 5:30, coffee and breakfast, check in with my challenge group, make my post on Facebook, do my miracle morning journaling, work out, listen to PD, do my power hour. I have to do notes for my job every day, so I have to get my notes in there, clean up the kitchen, make dinner, spend time with each of my kids, spend time with my husband, and drink my water and complete all the tasks that I have outlined in my planner, and in bed by 9:45. that's an awesome day. Those are all the daily habits that if I can do all of that every day, then each day I'm making progress on the goals that are really important to me. I know Amanda's doing some really awesome stuff with finances and budgeting. And so um, Amanda, or some, just as an example, Amanda might have something on here with related to finances, like I checked my envelopes and checked in to see whether I was on track or whether I needed to make any adjustments for the next day. So this could pertain to anything that you're working on. If you track it, you're more likely to stay on track with what you're wanting to do. Okay, so the other thing is to be really specific about your intention. Um, so, so for example, I have, so one of the things is I want to make sure I do my power hour and I send out my invites each day. So I'm going to specifically say what the behavior is that I'm going to do at what time and in what location. So checking in with my challenge group is something I automatically do already. It's just become a habit. I have my coffee and I do my Facebook posts and check in with them. So I don't think about that. So I made the decision that it would work to send some of my invites out at that time. So my behavior, my intention is I will send out my invites I'm going to spend 30 minutes at 5:30 in the morning as I'm sitting in my kitchen having my coffee. So the more specific you are about this, then the more likely it is to get done. The book, I'm just checking time. I know this is going kind of late. I think I just have a few more little things. But the book gave this really good example about voter trends. And they did this study where they spent maybe a week before an election and they started chatting up all sorts of voting activity, like on the radio and on social media. Where are you going to vote? What's the best route for you to get there? How do you get in and out of the parking lot? Where are you going to park? Which door are you going to go in? And the more they talked about the specifics of the act of voting, the more they got people out to vote for that election. So super cool. So the more you can really think through the details and the specifics of what it is you're trying to do and state that to yourself over and over again, then the more likely it is that you're going to do it. And let's see. Then the other concept they talk about is habit stacking, which is sort of related to the example I just gave, that if you're trying to establish a new habit, it's a lot easier to attach that to something that you're already doing. So if I'm already checking in with my challenge group when I have my coffee, it's pretty easy to then just add one more thing than have to think about that new thing on its own. So after I post in my challenge group, I'm going to spend 30 minutes sending my invites. And then the other thing I really liked was this idea of keep your habit going. So I bet probably a lot of you are similar in this way. I like to have little rules for myself and they keep me honest. And if I hear the rule in my head, then I'm going to try to stick with it. So try not to keep your streak. If you're working on getting a habit going and you string together a couple of days, try not to break it. I like the rule of never miss more than one day. So I have that for myself for working out. Inevitably something happens here and there, but I try not to ever miss more than one day because then 2 days can turn into 3, can turn into 5, and then it's a lot harder to get back on track when you've had a big chunk of time that you're missing. Also track immediately after you complete the habit if you can. So ideally, if you filled out that habit tracker, then as you go throughout the day, you would check off that you're doing each of those things rather than waiting till the end of the day and checking them all off. Again, ideal, not always possible. And then spend some time reflecting on your performance and reviewing your system. So maybe at the end of the week, go back and look and see how did I do? Which habits did I get in many days and which ones did I not figure out how to do? And then think about why, what went in, what got in the way, what was going on, and what might you need to tweak in order to get that habit established better. And so your environment, I'll go over this quickly. Your environment influences your habits. So you can construct your environment to have a positive effect on you. So leave your tracking notebook out or whatever system you use to send your invites. Like I always have Teamsy open so that I can always look at it and update it really quickly. Place your glasses of water in various rooms. Leave your workout clothes and sneakers out and ready to go. And then the opposite is get rid of the bad influences in your environment. So if your phone's a distractor, then put it in another room. When it's time to sit down and do your power hour, well, we probably need our phone, but maybe turn off other notifications, or if you're working on your computer, then put your phone in another room. Hide the TV remotes. If you're trying to get work done and not turn on Netflix, then hide the remotes from yourself or give them to someone else in the family and say, you can give them back to me when I've done the work that I need to do. Or another example is to conceal or hide the food that is off plan. We kind of probably all know that one. And then I love this one too, when I got to this quote in the book that talked about the people that you surround yourself with have a major influence on your habits. So make it a point of becoming part of a culture where the behavior that you want is the regular behavior. And yeah. So here we all are on this awesome team. And I think that's what I personally love so much about Beachbody, is that we can feed off each other, and the success of one inspires and motivates so many other people to work hard and get there, and we're all awesome. And so then just one last thing before we wrap up. Knowing now what you know about habits, can you make some notes in the chat box about what habits you're going to work on, and what did you learn that you think is going to help you tweak your system so that you can be more successful with it? Okay, so let me back up. Okay, so getting back to morning routine, surrounding yourself with positive people, daily power hour, habit stacking. I love this, planning out your post on your drive home. That's an awesome idea. Take advantage of the time that you have in your car so that you're ready to go when you get home. Schedule power hour on the phone. Get up a half hour earlier to work on inviting. Yeah, awesome. So I hope this was helpful. I know that these two books really have had a big impact on me, and I'm definitely not perfect, and I'm really working on my power hour and the time I spend on my business. But I find the more I read about habits, so my PD lately has been all on habits, and so the more I read about it, the more I'm filling my brain with thoughts about habits, and then the more likely I am to really pay attention to how I'm using my time. So I think that's what I'll end on, is that if this is something you want to work on, make it part of your PD, and it keeps you thinking about it even when you're not actually doing the work. So hope this was helpful. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Carol. Did anyone, I don't know if we have a few moments for questions, or if you guys want to share your thoughts. I know, like when I did Miracle Morning, that's when I really did get up at 5 a.m. and like got on the team power hours, and you just feel so good when you complete it. Yeah, and it just naturally becomes a habit until there's a disruptor and something happens and that gets in the way of it. But then you can make new habits, right? So like sometimes, yeah, we absolutely can, just like with workouts and our eating, like we can always fall off, but we can always get back on. And yeah, I mean, I think this was a perfect call for kind of this season. We're all in right now of like, getting like, all right, summer is gone. Like we're absolutely into fall and like getting back on the grind of things. So very, very good info.
Awesome.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Carol, so much. Have a great night, guys.
Bye.
Bye.